Hi, it's Mrs. Big Bird, Debbie Spinney, and you're watching a podcast where nostalgia comes alive. It's Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. Roll it.
Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. Join Jake and his friends on a journey through pop culture of the past, where they interview professionals in the worlds of acting, directing, writing, puppeteering, and so much more. Who will they be chatting with today? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode.
Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. Happy you're with us. Thank you for joining. As always, I'm your host, Jake. Diving involved with me today, as always, our co-hosts, Chris Bixby and Matt Bingle. Hi guys.
We're good.
Good. Hello, everyone. How are you, Jake?
Doing great as always, Matt. Thank you for asking.
Yes, we have a wonderful interview for you folks. It was a very fun chat. Matt, why don't you tell everyone about it?
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. I'd be delighted to. Today's guest is a unique one, a puppet designer, builder, and a photographer for Sesame Street and the Muppets. He joined the New York Muppet Workshop in 1980 and won an Emmy Award for his work with Sesame Street in 1986. During his time with Sesame, he designed a number of characters, including Placido Flamingo, Meryl Sheep, and Wolfgang the Seal. He's also designed puppets for the original Fraggle Rock, among others. And finally, he's also one of the founders of the National Puppetry Conference at the Eugene O'Neill Theater, which one of our previous guests, Pam Marciero, is the artistic director of. You'll also hear about how to take a great puppetry photo. All of this and more with our special guest, Richard Termine. Enjoy.
See you then.
See ya.
Hello everyone, welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, the podcast where nostalgia comes alive.
Yes, glad you're here, folks. Please welcome our special guest, Mr. Richard Termine. Richard, happy to have you here. How you doing?
Very good. Nice to be with you all. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
There you
Pleasure
go.
is ours.
So to kick this off, could you kind of introduce yourself a little bit to our audience and kind of describe what you do a little bit?
Sure. Well, to give you a perspective, I grew up in Connecticut, and I originally, as a kid, started doing puppets very early on, and was really taken by that, and so pursued that for quite a bit on my own. And then when I was in high school, I met a student of Frank Ballard's who developed and created the program at a puppetry program at the University of Connecticut. And when I was a junior in high school, he was doing a production of The Love for Three Oranges on the main stage at the University of Connecticut. And so I got to see some rehearsal and then saw the performance. And then that summer, this is the summer of 1970, when I was a junior in high school, there was a National Puppeteers of America Festival, which is a national organization, and they hold festivals, national festivals around the country. And that summer in 1970, it was at the University of Connecticut. And the opening, Frank Ballard, who was the director of the puppetry program there, was co-director of the festival with Carol Spinney, who also of Connecticut, of Big Bird fame, and Oscar the Grouch. They together were the artistic directors of the festival. And the opening night of the festival was the performance of The Love for Three Oranges on the campus at the University of Connecticut. And there were a few students that didn't come back that summer. It was in August of 1970. And so he invited me to be one of the puppeteers on that. So I was able to puppeteer, and that was my first festival. Let's see what else I can tell you. So I eventually ended up going to the University of Connecticut as an undergraduate. I was a general major, a general dramatic arts major, but I was taking puppetry classes. And then by the time I was graduating, I applied for the MFA program at UConn in puppetry and auditioned and was accepted into that, and then spent the next 2 years studying and receiving my MFA in puppetry at UConn.
Nice.
So
Nice. So I'm kind of curious, did you always want to work in the performing arts in some way?
I did, yes, from a very early age, and I definitely, was in high school. I did high school musicals. I went to Xavier High School in Middletown, Connecticut, and was in musicals all those years. I played Fagin in Oliver. I was in Camelot, and I'm still in touch with the. This was a Catholic school, and with the former nun who was the director of this program. She lives in Connecticut, and I just saw her this past summer, and keep in touch with her and thank her for her support and very formative years for me.
Nice, nice. Absolutely.
That's really cool. So do you remember your first professional job in the performing arts?
Well, what happened was is I received my MFA in puppetry, and at the time there was a CETA program, which was a government program for the arts and all trying to increase the employment. This was in 1987, so I was the director of that for several months, and then I took a teaching job in upstate New York at a SUNY school as a tech director, designer, director in Delhi. And I did that for a year. I was a 1 year replacement. And then I went on to Hartwick College in Oneonta, New York, as a scenic design and tech director position. And then the interesting thing I have to tell you is that when I was doing studying puppetry at UConn, I was very much that I wanted to do theater. And and a number of students, it was the time that Sesame Street was beginning, and some of my colleagues were going down to visit the set. And my take on it was that I wanted to do theater and that I wasn't going to do television. Well, I soon changed that as I became more and more aware of the magic of what was being created with the Muppets. I can remember in college we saw there was I believe it was on ABC. Jim Henson did a special called "Sex and Violence," which
Right.
was tapping the adult possibilities of Muppets on TV. And I can remember watching that special together with my colleagues. And anyway, one of my fellow students, Jan Rosenthal, um, graduated. We worked together a bit at this seat at this arts organization, but she ultimately, within a matter of months, got a job at the Muppets in the workshop, and was there working Sesame Street, and then went off to Muppet Show in London. And she was an amazing designer, my best friend, a designer, builder, just amazing. When I did my MFA at UConn, I did this production, Death of Dr. Faust, and she helped me, was in the production, but also helped me in extraordinary ways in terms of mounting that production. I would add that after teaching for a couple of years, I felt like I needed to get more professional expertise, more experience, perspective on what I was sharing and teaching. And this was the summer of 1980, after my second year of teaching, and there was a International Unima Festival at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. And Jim Henson was the artistic director of that. And it was truly an international festival and of puppetry. And so I went down to that festival, and my friend Jan flew in from the Muppet Show from London. And I said to her, I asked her if she could get me an interview at Muppets at the workshop. And indeed she did. She called up to New York from Washington, D.C., and arranged for me to have an interview on my way back to Connecticut, on my way back home. And they were doing Muppets was doing a build of a Muppet of Sesame Street Live, which was their touring productions. And so I interviewed and I got hired for a couple of months to do that. So I gave up my teaching on the spot and moved to New York and took this job for a couple of months, and which was wonderful. And then I was laid off. I went back to teaching outside the city for a bit, but I connected with Muppets and I started to freelance with them in various areas, in the art department, in various areas. And one day, Carol Lee Wilcox, who was the head of the workshop, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "How would you like to join us in the workshop on Sesame Street?" And this was season 13. And so that's how I started working in the workshop full time on Sesame Street in particular, but other projects as well.
Right. Absolutely. So during your time with Sesame Street, you built and designed a number of Muppet characters, most notably Placido Flamingo, Meryl Sheep, and Wolfgang the Seal. What kind of went into constructing those puppets?
Well, I have to say that we would get scripts, and Carol Lee would delegate the various responsibilities, and so there occasionally you got to build. You got that choice assignment of building a character, and so you had the script there, and that was your most informative in terms of what the look and the or what the character had to create the in within the scene within the show. Carol Lee was very much on hands. She had been with Jim from almost the very beginning, and so was really her expertise was immeasurable in terms of choices that were made. One thing that I would say in terms of working with her on the show is that we were basically in the workshop. There were Muppet handlers that were on the set supporting the puppeteers, but when we built something very special, for example, a very intricate prop or a puppet, she would have us go on set and follow through with the character when it was being taped, so that we could help with that rigging, that we would learn in terms of what succeeded and what needed to be adjusted. So that was very much a part of our learning process in terms of designing, but having that experience, that hands-on experience of being on set and seeing what was involved in actually bringing these characters to life, both mechanically and in terms of the performers and what their needs were. So that was very much a part of the process, I would say.
Nice.
That's wonderful. I want to kind of like mention with Wolfgang because earlier in the year we got to chat with the amazing Kevin Clash, which of course he's so
Excellent.
great. Which of course he
Yeah,
got
we
to
did.
perform Wolfgang Seal when it was on,
Yes, yes.
which I'm just sure. What's the last time Wolfgang even used?
He was on
He
this
was
past
he was I was
season.
about to say, you don't remember he was on this
Yeah.
past season?
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
on this past
It was
season.
it was that scene. It was
It was
I
with
remember.
Gabrielle
Yeah, it's
and
Gabrielle and Grandma Nell.
yes.
Right.
It was a
Yeah.
short little
Yeah.
cameo.
Right.
It was cool to see Wolfgang come back.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it was
And
very
I
cool.
happened to be there
I
like the
sometimes
day.
forgot about that.
Yeah, yeah. I had happened to be there the day before shooting on set, and then I was there a few days later, and they said, "Oh, Wolfgang, you missed him. He was on." And
Oh my
so that was
gosh.
really sweet. And they were very complimentary about Ryan. I don't know if Ryan performed them. I believe he did, but he was like, "Wow, this puppet, the way it moved." It was very sweet of him. And I have to say that Carol Lee was very much in terms of being her expertise was very much a part of our process and our success.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Right.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. But yeah, going back with Kevin, like I remember he told us like a story about Wolfgang. That's I'm pretty sure you both probably know what I'm about to say. Where
Uh-oh.
it's basically where
Maybe.
so there's times where like if Kevin is like just performing Wolfgang just for whatever what the sketch is or something.
Yes.
There are times where John Stone just laughing so much about how Wolfgang's doing, and then like he doesn't say cut because he was laughing so hard,
Oh
and
yeah,
literally
right.
like literally that those things just like a cut when like literally Kevin where he just can't do the voice anymore
Yeah,
because he thinks he's so hilarious with
That
that
is
character.
great. That's how
Yeah,
wonderful these performers
That's
are. These
great.
characters are.
absolutely.
Yes.
And
For sure.
I absolutely want to mention Placido Flamingo as well. I think it was very interesting the way he was introduced in early '86.
Yeah,
But
where
also, but
Witcher
also
got
just
where Witcher Hunt got to do that
but also
character.
just the
Yeah,
fact that it brought classical music to Sesame Street. I thought You know, because you have
Yeah.
for you UK viewers, I'm sure you'll appreciate us mentioning this. They have the proms at the Royal Albert Hall every year. It's for those who don't know, it's a classical music festival. It runs from like mid-July through mid-September, every day for like I think it's like 70 days or something like that.
I've
Really
heard of
gotten
it,
into that
but
the last couple of years. I'd never been, but I find it really really cool. But I think it was really really
Yeah.
cool how the way obviously it was a parody of Placido Domingo, the famous opera singer, for those who are not
Yes,
aware.
yes.
But I just thought that was a really cool concept, you know, introducing classical music to Sesame Street.
Right, right. And then Richard was a very a real aficionado of the opera. He loved opera, so this was a wonderful for something that he
Yeah.
loved for him to be able to perform that. He added Pavarotti, the handkerchief that Pavarotti used when he
Yeah,
performed.
yeah.
So that
Right.
and it was funny that I want to say maybe 15 years ago I was because I photograph at the Met now. Occasionally I photograph operas, and I was there one day when Placido was there. Placido Domingo was there, and I saw him in the lobby. This was at a dress rehearsal, and I introduced myself and I mentioned Placido, and I was on set when he and photographing when he performed with the puppet, but this was several years later. And I mentioned the character, and he was like, "Oh, I wish they would invite me back. I would love to come back on the show." And
Oh,
so it was
Uh,
wow.
really sweet, very nice.
oh,
Oh,
that's
wow.
awesome.
That connection, yeah.
That's great.
But the character is not there. They have not revived it or
Yeah,
A
no.
lot, not a
Yeah.
lot of Richard's
Italy.
characters they haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Except
because
except
sometimes,
except Don Music. Don Music came back for a
That's
couple
true. Don
things.
Music
yeah.
came
Yeah.
back, yeah.
And we should mention Saltzman, Mark Saltzman, because he wrote the.
Oh yeah, I love
Love
Mark. Yeah.
Mark. He's
He's
great.
great.
He's awesome
You
too.
had him on your show?
Yeah, he's
Yes.
Yep.
awesome.
Excellent, excellent, yes.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah. So of course, yeah, you also got to design and build puppets for the Sesame Street specials, and including Don't Eat the Pictures and Big Bird in Japan, and the feature film Follow That Bird.
Right,
What was it
right.
kind of like working on, on location shoots? Like,
It was great. Again, I have to thank Carol Lee. I keep mentioning Carol Lee, but she would assign me these responsibilities, and I was the Muppet coordinator on Follow That Bird. And it was for the summer in Toronto, and to be able to do that was really exciting to be on set. The set was recreated up there, and a lot of location work was involved. One of the things that we had to build in New York for the movie was there was a scene of the board birds at the beginning of the movie, and I think they come in later as well. So
Right.
each of the builders were assigned to create one of their own puppets for the board, a bird puppet. So that was fun. And then I don't know if you know this, but at the end, when Big Bird returns to the street, there's all of these humans that are greeting him,
Hmm.
and they had extras, human extras for the movie shoot, but they wanted more, so a lot of us are in that final scene.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was great fun as
yeah.
Yeah,
so.
I remember talking to Noel McNeil about that because he had a
Mm-hmm.
cameo and his mom, rest her
Yep.
soul, had a cameo as well.
Read
Mm-hmm.
that. So it was great, and a great community of the talent and all. It's really special to be around these amazingly talented performers and builder, designers. It's a really quite extraordinary. So very
Absolutely.
lucky.
Definitely. So now, occasionally, you've also puppeteered on Sesame Street. Since we talked about designing and building puppets for the show, what was the performing
Um,
aspect for you
it
like on that
was
show?
performing is not my forte. As much as I enjoy it. And I got to do one of the highlights was we were doing a insert, which is these short scenes that are specifically all Muppet. And one of them was in a swamp with Kermit and other characters. And there was a song, and I got to do, I think it was a frog or a character like that, which was in the background and cross camera, but that was very exciting to do things like that. Also,
Nice.
I should talk just briefly about at the same time I started dabbling in photography, and we would document what we built on the set. This is the other thing Carol Lee had us do. We had a Bible or a book that was anything that was on that we created. We would take pictures of it, and it would go into the Bible, into the book. So we had a record of the date that it aired, and that sort of thing. So we were photographing on set, just documenting, but at the same time, I was dabbling in photography, and there was an on-set photographer on Sesame Street. And so I began to think, wow, this is I love photographing, and this is a freelance career, and really has some possibilities. And so I started taking some classes, and ultimately I made that transition, and I was able to. They gave me the flexibility with at Muppets because the season of Sesame Street was basically 6 months. So I was there 8 years basically in the workshop, 7 to 8 years. And basically, my last year, I was able to work, say, 8 months out of the year, and I was able to take a few months and do some assignments freelance and test the water. And so that's what I did. And one summer, as a matter of fact, I did Williamstown Theater Festival up in Massachusetts. I was the photographer. And I'm in the process now. That was the summer of 1988. I've just gone through, I had all my negatives. We had our own dark room. This was prior to digital. And so all of my stuff I'm now giving back to them because I've held on to all the contact sheets, all the negatives. And so I spent the last week organizing those, being in touch with them and giving them back to their archives so that they can have them. But anyway, that's how I segued from doing on set, began, and Sesame Street became my first client, really, shooting on set for them.
Nice, nice.
That's awesome.
I'll tell you another good story that I like to tell that I think is really sort of interesting. When I was there, Jim would come in and do insert week. Like he would do a whole series of scenes, and they would do 5 days or 3 days, and Jim and Frank were there, as opposed to being on the set. These were days that were only basically only Muppet scenes and not done on the set. And I'm generalizing here because he did scenes that were also, but these were called Muppet inserts. And one day when he was on the set, he asked some of the puppeteers, asked some of us who were on the floor to come over offset and put our hands together and just move our hands and just create, like, he just piled our hands all on top of each other and then asked us to move them. So we're moving them and this sort of thing. And that was all. He was just looking at it. Well, within the year, we're watching Labyrinth. And there,
Such a
Right,
wonderful
yeah.
film.
Great
Yeah.
right? And we're watching the tunnel. What was that? Where she's falling through?
Right, yeah.
All the hands. And we realized that's what he was doing. That's what he was playing and he was looking at. So he was always working, creating, thinking. Here he was on the Sesame Street set and he's thinking Labyrinth. So Shaft of Hands that's what the scene was in, I think it's Labyrinth.
Nice,
Yeah. That's awesome.
nice.
Interesting. So you also designed and built puppets for the original Fraggle Rock series. What was I working on it like?
I didn't do a great, I worked on set on that. I didn't do any of the main characters. We did
Right.
miscellaneous building on that, I would say. But I did work on set. We got to go up. I would tell you the process because there was a workshop up there on set, but a lot of stuff was built in New York and then would be carried as we would rotate people who were going to be in the Muppet workshop on set. They would hand carry the puppets from New York up to Toronto. And we would be met by a custom agent at the airport who would walk us through because of the paperwork and bringing in product, bringing in these puppets. It was very controlled. The other thing that was part of Fraggle Rock was that there was a core of Canadian puppeteers.
Oh, yeah.
So that,
Mhm.
and this is the puppeteers today
Right.
in Canada, many of them were trained as being part of this core, or this, I should say, auxiliary group that was part of Fraggle Rock.
Hmm. Nice.
And that was all negotiated in terms of governments, I'm sure, in terms of American production in Canada and needing to support and create and support the Canadian puppetry through the work.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
That's great. So, what was it like at designing puppets for the Muppets Take Manhattan and the Muppet Family Christmas?
Well, I have to say, I don't want to oversell myself. My
Right.
major work was Sesame Street. That was sort of and that was at least, I want to say, 6 to 8 months out of the year. The
Yeah.
other responsibility I had was with the exhibits. And there was an Art of the Muppets exhibit that toured. Jim was very
Right. Yeah.
uh, for him having the work out there being displayed. It was also a way of marketing. So when he did Labyrinth, when he did Dark Crystal, there were major exhibits that were mounted that had the puppets and the text and all the background information. And Leslie Ash, who was in the workshop, became the director of the exhibits department. And I
Hmm.
worked for her often, and I would do a lot of installations. I did installations all over the world,
Oh,
from
nice.
Russia to, a variety in Europe and Germany. So that was a wonderful experience to do that. So that took up some of my time as well.
Nice.
Interesting. So, on the subject of puppets, you were one of the founders of the National Puppetry Conference at the Eugene O'Neill
Right.
Theater Center. How did that come about for you?
Well, what happened was a couple of things, a confluence of a couple of things, is that I was ultimately I was working. Sesame Street became my one of my core photographic after leaving the workshop after 8 years. Then I became the on-set photographer, and at the same time, we were living in. I was living in New York as well as in Cleveland. My husband was at the Cleveland Playhouse as a director, dramaturg, and he was there for 7 years. So I became the photographer for the Cleveland Playhouse, which is a regional theater. It's the oldest regional theater, and also Cleveland Ballet. And at the same time, George Latshaw, who's an was a famous American puppeteer, lived in Cleveland. And Jane Henson, there was a transition of puppetry at the O'Neill, which was started with Margaret Rufus Rose of Connecticut, who were involved with the Howdy Doody show. But they were from Waterford, Connecticut. Anyway, there was a transition there, and Jane had the idea of setting up an endowment at the O'Neill Theater Center and starting a puppetry conference. So, like the Playwrights Conference, which is there, like the Music Theater Conference. And so she said to me, she knew my background in puppetry. I had been working with her. And she said, how about you and George Latshaw? George as the artistic director, you're out in Cleveland part-time. You could meet with him. Why don't the two of you direct this conference together? So that's how, and he was the artistic director for the first year, and I was his associate. The first year we did, and this was Jane's idea because we didn't have a lot of time. We were going to be committed to developing new puppet work, not Muppet, anything but Muppets, but we were going to do new puppet theater. And Jane Henson said, how about for the first year we do a Muppet video workshop because we don't have a lot of time and we'll just get the ball rolling here. So that's what we did. The summer of 1991, we did a Muppet puppeteering workshop. And Marty Robinson, Kathy Mullen, Pam Arciero.
Marty, Pam, yeah.
Yeah, so they were the directors of it, doing the manipulation. And then Jan Rosenthal, my friend, did construction, Peter McKinnon from the workshop. And we did that. And there were puppeteers. We had a huge group. And then the next year, we started with a new play development. new puppet productions. And George Latshaw at that time said to me, why don't I become the associate and you take over? So then we flipped, and I did that for, I think, 11 years total. And I'm still involved. We're going to have our 35th year coming up in June.
Oh, nice, nice.
So the other thing
That's great.
the other thing I should mention to you that's sort of a highlight is that in 1987, Jim was invited to Charleville-Mézières, which is a puppetry center, a puppetry institute there. And Basil Twist is the only American, I think, that has gone through and studied all 3 years and came through the entire program. Well, in 1987, Margareta Niculescu, who was the Czech puppeteer and the director of this institute in Charleville, invited Jim to come and do a 3-week puppet video workshop of his technique and his career, sharing that with international students. And Jim invited me to go as his assistant. So I went, and I went with patterns and all to create the Muppets that were all made out of foam for these workshops, on-camera workshops that he was going to do. And during this time, you have to realize I'm also segueing and doing photography. So I documented the work, the 3 weeks as well, and did some video camera work as well. The last week of it, we divided into groups, and each of the groups created their own stories, and we went around the town and in the center, and we shot these small videos, and they're online if you ever want to see them. But so anyway, that was the summer of 1987, and it was truly wonderful. It was very special.
Nice. Absolutely.
That's wonderful. So of course, as we mentioned, you're also best known as being Sesame Street's on-set photographer. Can you kind of like describe what kind of goes into taking a great puppetry photo?
Great question. So the on set, there are 3 cameras shooting majority of the time. And it's camera 1, center camera is on a jib, which is on a long arm, right? With the cameraman at the back working this cantilevered jib. It's called the jib, and it's a cantilevered camera. And then the third camera, which are on rolling. And the puppeteers are generally, this is on the set, are low or behind boxes, props, behind tables, or they're on rollies, and and this is the other important thing to realize, is that they have monitors. And Jim Henson in the 1950s, when he started Sam and Friends, Jane Henson would tell the story how they're in the studio for the first few days, and there's a monitor, TV monitor across the studio. And Jim said, well, bring that closer. No, a little closer, a little closer. And this is how the technique of them playing and framing to the monitor was developed. And the other thing is to realize is that the camera is a flipped image. So when they're moving this way in real time on the monitor, they are seeing the reverse. So they have to flip everything in their heads, in their mind's eye. So anyway, the performers are with the monitors. There's 3 cameras, and you're trying to shoot action shots. You want them in movement, catching the scene generally. So you're next to these cameras, shooting different angles, and you've also got puppeteers' heads.
Yeah.
So you're very much trying to frame what the TV is seeing. And so it is a challenge. And the lights are not always bright. You know, it's more atmospheric lighting. So it is very much a challenge. And you've got a moving jib, this camera, and I used to shoot film. I'll give you an idea. When we didn't have digital, this is prior to 2000, and I started digital 2001. But you had a casing around your camera. You couldn't put your camera on silent, and you've got it against you. and so you can't see. Now I can take my camera if I need to, and I can hold it out at a distance so I can look at the viewfinder. It's on silent, and and I can look what's happening around me in terms of where that camera is that I'm shadowing, where that video camera is. So the technology, and also I want to add that the speeds, when I was shooting the sensitivity of the film, I could shoot maybe at 400 ISO, the sensitivity on black and white, maybe push it to 800. Slide film, which was tungsten, balanced for the tungsten light of the studio, the interior light was 160. And you could push that, double it to 320. That's the sensitivity. So the speed at which you could shoot was very slow, very slow. And now I can shoot 32,000, 32,000, that you can go that fast. So the shutter speed I'm shooting at is much quicker, and I can get much more action shots. We do setups as well. After they do a scene, they will give me a few seconds. They'll frame up to the one of the cameras. The camera will move out of the way. I'll step in, and so I get them focused. Often for those shots, we want them looking in the camera. And Muppet eyes, when a Muppet is in focus, what do you see? The eyes are way off, focused into the camera.
Right.
You want those big Muppet eyes, those pupils looking right
Like
at the
right at the lens. Exactly.
right at the lens. So there's some challenges that are make for an interesting day. And you don't stop. You start in the morning. You're catching when they're doing their script read in the morning. They're rehearsing. You're trying to document. There's guests on set. So it's a very comprehensive day. It's wonderful. I mean, the talent that you are seeing in front of you, that you're capturing, is and also I want to add that one of the delights is that these performers, they have a script and they are following the script. They're following the what the narrative is, what the learning, what the text is all about. At the same time, they are creating with these characters, and they are bringing to what they bring to it. It's like watching Laurel and Hardy. This is like watching Jim and Frank, and watching the puppeteers today, is watching them create with these characters are their alter egos now. And so they are taking them beyond what is written on the page. Not that that's not brilliant, but what they can, the life that they can infuse in these characters is amazing.
Absolutely.
And I often say
yeah.
this, and it can't be said enough, is that if Jim could see these characters, how they have been so well, the characters maintained, and how they continue to live.
Yeah, how they've evolved.
But and still true in spirit, is truly a miracle, is a gift beyond, that these artists are really have made them their own, and yet kept the spirit of them.
Yeah, and on that note, of course,
Exactly.
people who have inherited characters like Eric Jacobson taking on Frank Oz's characters, or Matt Vogel taking on, Big Bird, and then a lot of Jerry's characters and things like that. I'm sure he'd be very proud of them.
Oh, exactly. It is, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, without a doubt. So, with so many photo shoot sessions you've been a part of over the years, are there any sessions, but really any characters that stick out to you as some of your favorites?
Ooh, I don't know. That's a tricky question. I'm not to repeat myself, but I think what I enjoy seeing is these puppeteers take the characters
Yeah.
and seeing them just play and create within the script. That's what I really appreciate, because that's where it lives.
Right.
It's not just rote. It's organic, and it's a creative talent bouncing ideas off you. Let's try this, let's try that. And I'm not disparaging the writers at all. I just think it's in partnership with the brilliance of what is there, what the curriculum is.
Right.
Right.
Since you're talking about guests coming on the show, who have been some of your favorite celebrity guests
Oh,
meet?
well, one of my favorites is Mr. Noodle, Bill Irwin. So watching Bill work as Mr. Noodles is like watching a Laurel and Hardy, of that caliber, a clown. One of my favorite bits was that he was doing a scene where he was miming painting as part outside his house, and he had an easel and he was miming. And as the voiceover, whatever, was about the artists, and I think it even mentioned like Picasso and Rembrandt and Seurat, and he within a few minutes was miming the different styles of painting technique for each of those artists, and made it so visually fun, and it was brilliant. So I remember that moment, that seeing that creativity.
Oh, that's nice.
That's great. I mean, with the celebrities, I mean,
Yeah,
there's so many that you got to do.
yeah,
It's so
definitely.
it's crazy to kind of go on and on, but like
There.
with one Michelle Obama and Jill Biden
Exactly. Yeah. It just,
and Thomas Rhett and Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
yes, yeah. And Tony Bennett and
Oh yeah. Buzz Aldrin. Yeah.
Yeah,
Armstrong. So, just unreal, unreal.
and,
It's wonderful.
oh my gosh, like One Direction and
Yeah.
Jonas Brothers
Yeah,
when they appeared at the Not Too Late show.
and
And Ray Charles. There's so
Yeah.
many.
yeah, exactly. So it's been um, amazing.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of Sesame fans who would be appreciated for me to kind of like additionally for me to talk about it. Like, and there are times that because I remember like going to your website before we're doing this chat. I saw they actually got to be the one actually like took a picture for the 50th anniversary video.
Yeah, the
Right.
one with like everyone together, like all the
Which that was so
puppets, the
cool.
humans. Yeah.
And that happens. The other thing is it's not purposely set out to do that, but if you get a great shot, then it's seen and it's used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So which was really the other thing I got to do is early on is that we would do each season. We don't do this any longer, but we would do a group photo, cast and puppet.
Yeah.
We would do so we would do those, and it was a photo shoot.
Oh
And
right, yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think I did 3 of them where I would do the sketch. I would do all of the design, the concept of the shot, and then John Barrett, who was the Muppet studio photographer, would come in with his his large format camera, light it and shoot it. So I did 3 of those, and that was an honor to be able to create that. I have one of them here. I could pull one down. You want me to grab it here? And
Yeah, sure.
Sure, if you want.
No problem at all.
So here it is, right off my wall.
Right.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen that photo.
Yeah, I've seen
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so
So
cool.
I
Right.
did the original sketch of where everyone would be,
Oh
and
wow.
then
That's so cool.
yeah,
Right.
John
Yeah.
photographed this. So anyway,
Oh, that's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
yeah, and then I have another one. It's up too high that we did, but I have everybody's. I could reach it. Can you hold a minute? I'll
Yeah.
take it down.
Sure.
So here's another one. Now, this one I photographed. I didn't do the setup of where everybody, they're just in front of
Oh
Right.
wow,
Yeah.
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 The thing
Right.
that I wanted to
Uh-huh.
share is that I have everybody's autograph on this
That's
Yeah.
Oh,
in the
that's
great.
photo.
great.
See
I
if I
Wow.
get
love
it back here, but
that.
they all signed it for me.
Oh,
That's
Oh my
awesome.
goodness.
Yeah.
That's
So that was for the
wow.
great.
40th anniversary. And
Yeah.
this was done in the studio against a cyc. So they lit it, and I just photographed. And then we added like this was photoshopped in here, Abby flying there.
Oh,
Right.
nice.
Wow.
That's great.
That is great.
Is
Wow.
there anything else here that?
I saw there's one with Carol and the Big Bird in the background,
Yeah. So here's another.
which that's so cool too.
So this is a montage I'm showing you here. So this is another group photo, and this is when we had around the corner.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yes.
So this was a
Yes.
shot. I didn't shoot this, but I did the design of where everybody was in the
Oh, wow.
playground. And then so you saw this one. And then this was another one that I did as a takeoff. This was for our 20th anniversary, and this was a takeoff of the MGM when they had, I don't know if you've ever seen that MGM for the Cavalcade of Stars did a group photo with everyone on bleachers. And
Oh,
so,
okay.
I
so this
might
is what this was a
have.
takeoff.
Nice.
20. So anyway, that's that there.
No, that's awesome.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else here that would
Me just mentioned about like Carol and Big Bird. There's another one of that, but I actually had like Big Bird and then with Carol had with the Big Bird legs.
oh yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then I got a great shot of him. Maybe I sent
Oh.
it to you of the bear. He's got a
Yeah.
Big Bird T-shirt on.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Big Bird's
Exactly.
looking, and they're looking at each other.
Yeah.
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 That was at a national festival, I think, in San Francisco.
Right. Yeah.
I took that as a candid, and
Uh,
I like that. It's one of my favorites.
Oh,
that's wonderful.
That's great.
But actually, recently we actually got a chat with Debbie
Oh,
Spinney.
nice.
Yeah, we did.
She's
She's a
just the
sweetheart.
best.
She
She
really
is a
is.
sweetheart.
Really is.
Oh my goodness. And she was there all the time. Talk about partnership with Carol. I mean, they traveled together. Excuse me. She was his right hand, literally. Yeah.
Yes.
What
Oh,
a
that,
partnership.
Exactly.
that's great.
That's wonderful. There's so much. It's
Yeah.
crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that there's some that you did like for behind the scenes, like pictures or something, and then one with the street we live on.
For the
Oh,
th- for the th- for the
yeah,
thir for the
35th.
35th anniversary, yeah.
Yeah, we're all of them together saying the street we live on. It was kind of like one of those Elmo's World
beautiful
I
Someone's
song.
don't
World.
remember that one.
like video where it's basically like Elmo's kind of first started singing, and then everyone else
Joins
Yeah.
in.
joined in. Yeah, and then it was kind of a photo of just saying when they're waving like bye or something like that.
Yeah.
Which that was
Like Elmo's up front with Dorothy, and then everyone's kind of like on
Everybody
the
else.
steps and stuff.
They join in.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah, and then one with Jim and one with Frank doing Super Grover. I mean, there's so
Oh, yeah,
much
Yeah.
going on. It's crazy
Yes.
Thank you.
because the show they did there's a lot of wonderful photos throughout
Yeah.
for Sesame Street, and sure there'll be a lot more down the line. So
Well, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Mm,
I mean, it depends what's gonna happen with the next season. I mean,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. Right.
So do you all do puppets? Do you all puppeteer or
Jake and I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all do. Yeah, I do too.
We all
Yeah.
do, yeah.
great?
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, I have
absolutely.
a couple of puppets like back there
As
with
do
all
I.
the collection, and one up there, which I'll show whenever we're wrapping up. But
Yeah,
like
yeah.
for the picture and all. Um,
Have you done any workshops with the Muppet performers? Have you done with
No,
Mark?
not yet. No, but I would love to.
You got to do
I
that.
mean,
Not in person.
technically we did,
Yeah,
but it was in
not in person we did.
person.
Okay.
No,
not in
it
person.
wasn't. Not
We
in
did
person, it was
because
on
we're
Zoom.
a part of this puppet club, and there was a time where
From Gretchen.
yeah,
from
and there was a
based
time
in
that
New
Marty
York.
was actually a guest, and he was actually teaching like monitor skills and
Excellent.
eye focus and things
Our
like that.
focus
Yeah,
and how like
emotions.
Great.
Yeah, I think yeah.
He's the best. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
Really is.
he is.
So
He
Dear
is.
generous.
friend.
For
Dear
sure.
friend.
So talented. Oh my goodness.
Really,
Yeah,
really
Such
is.
a
absolutely.
lovely guy, and
Mhm.
of course Annie Evans too.
Of course.
Yes. Oh yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
So now, in addition to the show, you also photographed for Sesame Street Magazine. What was doing that like?
yes, that was it was good because it was assignment. It was assignment. My son is in one of the as a little boy is in one of the photo sessions that we did.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
another one is that when I was out in Cleveland, there's a dance company out there called Dancing Wheels, and it is dancers that are in wheelchair bound dancers with dancers that are standing and moving, and they still exist. And I told the editors about that, and we did a photo shoot, a story about them for the magazine. So there was a crossover of ideas and some wonderful stuff. Unfortunately, it's no longer in production,
Right. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I enjoyed it very much, and we won some awards. I have one here. Let's see. Yeah, we won an award. This was for print journalism from it was called Equality, Dignity, Independence Organization, presented by the National Easter Seal Society, and this was Sesame Street Magazine, Dancing Wheels, print journalism, 1993, and that was for that story of
Oh,
the wheel.
nice.
So
That's
Nice.
cool.
yeah.
That is cool. So, some other children's series that you did some photography on were Bear in the Big Blue House, Between the Lions, and Blue's Clues. Can you talk about some of your work on those shows?
Well, that was through my association through Sesame Street and photographing on Sesame Street, and then the crossover of the performers allowed me to network and to be on set with occasionally with some of those other shows. So again, I think ultimately I'd like to think my background in puppetry and then my photo experience, shooting performance, and I think it's all part of that whole of how the gesture. I have a puppet photography exhibit that's been touring, and it started in Charlottesville in 2019, and it's been touring. It's now going to go to the University of Connecticut in January, but it was in Chicago. It's been in Montreal. It's been in New York, at the University of Maryland, where Jim and Jane went to school. It was there this past.
Opportunity like
Yeah.
that.
Now the other thing is,
Exactly.
last year for the festival, Heather gave us a bus
Yeah.
tour of all. We went by Jim Henson's houses where he grew
Yeah.
up, the high school. They did like the building where the first studio where he did Salmon Friends originally.
Mhm.
So if you get a chance and you do some research, maybe you can find some of those locations. But the
Maybe.
campus is definitely very special. So
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Make sure. Okay, so yes, so you've also photographed a number of theater and dance performances. Now, what is it compared to like photographing for Sesame? What is it like for doing photographs for theater and stage?
well, immediately what I think of is I don't have to worry about puppeteers. I don't
Right.
have to,
Right. You don't have to worry about heads showing up and
Head
things like
showing.
that.
Exactly.
No heads.
No
No
heads.
heads.
So you're there to shoot heads.
Yeah,
Human heads.
exactly.
So I have to tell you, I am passionate about what I do. I love it is to be engaged in a performance and to document it and to photograph it. It's for me very much I call it a dance in which I am partnering with the performers. And I would say this even on Sesame Street, that you're listening, you're observing, you're trying to anticipate. It's all choreography, it's all movement, and you are trying to capture that gesture. Performance photography comes alive. It's a still moment, but it's a still moment of gesture, of movement, and capturing that sense of gesture and movement, that energy of performance in a still photo that is the key. And the other thing is to tell a story, to share what the performance is about, to share what the script is about on Sesame, the narrative, and if someone could look at that picture and say, that's a key moment. What is happening in that moment? Why am I engaged in this performance? And that hopefully that picture is just as engaging.
Absolutely.
So that's the magic of it. And I would just add that I find doing performance photography transformative, as uplifting as the performances and the performers. Being engaged and connecting through the camera is just as transformative for me. I can be tired, I can be not maybe feeling 100%, but you get that camera in front of me and I have that performance, and I'm in the moment.
Nice.
So it's a really wonderful.
Yeah.
And I'll also say, I was dabbling in photography on Sesame Street, and then ultimately photographing Sesame. And one day there was a New York Times photographer, Sarah Krulwich, came on to do a story, and I talked to her. She made the intro for me with the arts section of the New York Times, the arts desk. And that's how I became a freelancer, and I'm still am with the New York Times, and been doing that for 20 something years. So, and it made the intro to all the other arts in New York, Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center. It has been, that sort of networking and sharing. It's been amazing. So, and I have Muppets to thank for that. Sesame Street.
Absolutely. And that's actually a perfect segue. With something like the New York Times, what is it like kind of getting the overall feeling, getting to see your work featured in such a top-selling newspaper?
It's great. It is. It's a blast. I have clipping books. I get the Times every day. Although they've really cut back because of the digital age.
Right.
So I used to get 5 assignments a week sometimes. And this year I had 3 Broadway shows, and I haven't worked in several months for them. But it's intermittent right now. But I have all these other connections that I'm working. But it's wonderful to see your work in print, and to see it out there, and to see
Oh yeah.
and to do the editing and see what's chosen, and that's a whole informative part of the process as well.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So as
Yeah.
we're close to wrapping up here, could you share any projects that you're currently working on, at least that you are allowed to talk about?
Yeah. Let's see. Well, really, it's excuse me. I would say I'm continuing. I want to photographing puppetry beyond Sesame Street is about, I want to say about right now, it's become almost 50% of my work. Other puppet productions. I just photographed at the Japan Society, Basil Twist, Dogadayashi, which I had photographed 20 years ago, brought back a revival of that. They're having the Bunraku come in. I'm going to photograph that. La Mama Theater is having their puppet festival. I'm going to photograph that coming up in October and November. So, so I do a lot of puppetry, which I know and I love.
Nice.
So,
It's wonderful.
and then I have this touring exhibit, and we're updating it I have to say, thanks to Cheryl Henson, the Henson Foundation, for supporting that. I would say things that are really stellar are Jane Henson. My association with Jane Henson through the years was very key to my success, and I can't thank her enough. I couldn't thank her enough for the opportunities that she provided, the support that, in terms of the O'Neill, in terms of other opportunities, and were just amazing. Thanks to her, I initially got onto the Henson Foundation. And thanks to Cheryl Henson, I'm vice president of the Henson Foundation. And, Jim and Jane started this foundation to support American puppetry. puppetry that is not Muppets, and and how this has supported and developed, nurtured American puppet theater through the years. It's amazing, and it continues to do that. And I'm involved with that. And my photography exhibit, which is touring, is in thanks to the Henson Foundation. That is who is producing it, presenting it, and again, I'm very lucky. And I continue to photograph for that. We continue to each installation. It's going to be at University of Connecticut in January, and a whole new images are added each time that it is mounted.
Nice.
That's wonderful to hear.
So
That for me is going home, I would say. University of Connecticut, Frank Ballard, that's where it all started for me. So
absolutely.
That's lovely.
Absolutely. So this last question that Jake's about to ask is a question we ask all of our guests at the end. Go ahead, Jake.
Thank you, Chris. So, of course, this podcast is called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. When you think of nostalgia, what do you think of? Or in your own words, how would you define the word nostalgia?
Nostalgia. Wow. For me, in terms of nostalgia,
Yeah.
I would say as a photographer, and images of my life are very much what I'm surrounded with in terms of my computer, the hard drives I've had, my career. So for me, nostalgia is very a visual, the visual photo. And I have I have all my family, my ancestors, my theater, the work I've created, the puppetry I've created, the Sesame, the productions. It's all I'm surrounded by it. My archive is my nostalgia.
That's wonderful.
I'm very lucky.
Nice. Well, Richard, thank you so much for taking time to do this. This is a blast.
Great. And I sent you some photos. Will you edit them into this, or how do you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll put them in. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and if we're gonna have like any like your photos like on your website that we're gonna put them, we'll credit you with that.
Oh
That's
yeah,
it.
yeah,
That's
no
all.
problem.
Yes,
That's
stuff.
great. And if you have any questions about them, let me know.
Okay,
Sure.
sure.
Will do.
Thank you so much.
Excellent, guys. Really a pleasure.
Thank
All
you.
Yes,
Best.
and a pleasure
Thanks so
having you
much,
on too.
Richard.
This was
Pleasure having
this
you.
was-
Come down
this
to
was a
New
lot.
York. Let me know.
Thanks
Whatever.
again.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll let
Will
you
do.
know.
Very good.
Love to, yes.
Yeah.
All right,
Much
enjoy the rest of your day,
success to all
Richard.
of you. Thank you.
Thank
You
Thank
too.
You as well.
Thanks
You
again,
know.
Richard. Take
Yes,
care.
enjoy the rest of your day.
Pleasure. My pleasure. You
Of
too.
course. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
And it's goodbye from us as well, everyone. We absolutely enjoyed our time with the wonderful Richard Termine. Links to his website and social media will be in the description down below for anyone who wants to connect with him or check out his photography work and more. But it's goodbye from us as well. Keep on the lookout for more wonderful interviews coming your way. And as always, what do we say, Jake?
Keep nostalgia alive. Take care, everyone. See you next time. Take care. Bye.
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 Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode. Be sure to follow Jake and the Happy Nostalgia team on social media, check out our website, and stream the show wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember to keep nostalgia alive. Bye-bye.